Hi everyone and welcome to week 5. This week we're talking about social network sites and online communities. Because it's an odd-numbered week, this week the odds will be completing the learning activities, both the play and reflect activities. Over the course of the semester we've been talking about how we're building a learning community here on the unit site. This week we're asking you to think a little more generally about the idea of online communities and to reflect on how social network sites can help with managing or establishing online communities. It's important to note that social network site does not equal online community. There are characteristics of communities that need to be in place in order for the community to be a community. We've set some readings this week that allow you to explore these characteristics of communities and also to explore how libraries and information organisations are using social network sites to build community. When we talk about community, we're really talking about a couple of different definitions. Firstly, we talk about establishing online communities, which are groups of people that come together to connect in a single space around a shared interest. We also talk about getting community involvement in information organisations. This relates to the idea of the participatory library or the participatory organisation. In participatory organisations, we reach out to our users and encourage them to participate as part of the community that is supported by the particular organisation. Communities can be very different things in very different contexts. For example, there is theory around communities of practice, which help practitioners in certain areas to connect together around particular interest topics. Communities might also be made up of a community group or the members of a community group. This week we use the example of new mothers connecting in social media. The findings that we talk about related to this come from my PhD study. And what I have found is that a sense of community grows up around mothers as they connect with each other online in social media spaces. These communities might occur in spaces designed for groups that are in the physical world. So, for example, mothers groups, which might have an outlet online for people to connect as well. Community around mothering and new motherhood online is not always a positive thing. My research suggests that it can be a really empowering and useful thing, but that there is also a lot of angst or debate that happens in social media around some of the more politicised topics related to mothering. When we talk about online communities, we shouldn't just focus on the positive. There are actually negative aspects of these spaces or these communities that spring up online, and it's really important that we consider these so that we're prepared to be able to deal with them. Not everyone plays nicely on the internet, and it's important for organisations that are attempting to establish or manage a community online to think about policies related to managing some of the more heated discussions that might prop up. It's also really important to think about how the community will be managed, because communities don't really start and continue to evolve on their own. They usually require a bit of stoking. In the example of the unit site, we have seen that Sarah in particular, and also Kathleen and I, have been travelling around and commenting on your blogs and answering your questions. We do this to stoke conversation and to help the community get established. As the semester progresses, you'll see us retreat a little bit from the online environment because we're in there in this early phase helping you to build community, but we very much want it to be your community. So that means once we see it start to establish, we will hand over to you guys and let you self-manage the community. As you work through the learning resources this week, we encourage you to think about some of the online communities that you might be a part of. What do they look like? Where do they occur? And what do you get out of them? For this week's activity, we're asking you to self-organise to create community spaces somewhere on the internet for you and your peers. We've given you lots of details on how to go about this on the activity page, but we're really keen to see what you come up with. what kind of spaces you think would be useful, where you create them, and what types of conversation you initiate there. Finally, I wanted to remind you that we have a workshop this Friday night from 5 p.m. till 9 p.m. in P413. Kathleen will be running this workshop, and we will have 4 guest lecturers along to talk about programs, products and services in their organisation. Next week's workshop will do the same thing again with 4 different speakers. And the reason we do this is because this is a really practical discipline, and it's important for you to see how programs, products and services are developed and designed and delivered in real workplaces. So we hope you have a good week and you enjoy setting up your community spaces and interacting with each other there. I'll look forward to reading your posts towards the end of the week.